MK Glidewell, clinical herbalist and licensed massage therapist, and welcome to AHG's Plant Talks. I'm here today back in my yard again in my HOA in Ruskin, Florida, showing you what I have growing in my garden. And today I want to do a little bit of a talk about some bioregional herbs that grow around us. Some of these didn't originate here, but they happen to be very prolific in my area as well. So we're gonna start with this beautiful, beautiful baby, sweet baby. She's my mama to all my little Cranberry Hibiscus, or my Hibiscus acetosella, or my African rose mallow as she's known. She's my mother plant for all the other little Cranberry Hibiscuses that grow around my yard because they proliferate so well. I use Cranberry Hibiscus in a lot of food. I make beautiful oxymels, some honeys, I make some tinctures, and I also find it's really good to put in a tisane. And another thing that's really interesting is that my dog really likes it too. The African rose mallow, or Cranberry Hibiscus, is in the mallow family, so it lends to show that it's going to have some mucilaginous properties to it, which means that it's moistening. So anything that's dry, like let's say a dry hacking cough, or a dry throat, or dry mouth, or if someone has a particular problem with maybe some digestional issues that might be warmer and might be a little bit drier, we can definitely cool and moisten that digestive tract or those lung tissues or any type of issue that happens to be hot and dry, because the African rose mallow, or Cranberry Hibiscus, is both cooling and moistening. Moistening because it's in the mallow family. Another plant that grows in my yard that's in the mallow family is Ceta. Ceta happens to be a bioregionally available herb as well. And Ceta happens to have an affinity for the lungs. And interestingly enough, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I'm not a great gardener. We're gonna have a special appearance by Maggie today. I'm not a great gardener, but what I will say is that sometimes things just happen to grow together. And as you all know, we've had this pandemic, COVID. And in the beginning of the pandemic, this Ceta popped up in this African rose mallow. And I thought to myself, what is the universe trying to tell you? Maggie wants to be a superstar. She really loves the Cranberry Hibiscus. That's why she keeps coming over here. It's that good. It's tasty. It's almost like sweet tarts without the sugar. And what I will say is that I don't propagate in my yard. I'm not a great gardener. But what happens is I use things based upon how they grow sometimes. And it makes sense. They're both mallows. They're both cooling. They're both moistening. One of them has an affinity for the lungs. So why not drive extra moisture and extra cooling to a hot, inflamed, dry, lung issue? And some of my clients who have visited me coming with, COVID diagnoses have actually benefited from the use of these two plants together. So that's something that's interesting. And another plant that I use that grows prolific within my area, bioregionally, is this Bidens. Bidens, as you all know, has an affinity for antibacterial properties. It is cooling. It is, I would say that Maggie likes this as well. Maggie had a condition of the lungs, and she happens to really enjoy the bitterness from Bidens. Bidens has saponins in it, and there's over 200 different species of Bidens. But the saponins that occur in here actually kind of lend to the antibacterial properties. It's been known to actually be very effective against Staphylococcus. And Maggie really enjoys it. If you have a Bidens, and you have a tiny Bidens, you can actually eat it. A lot of the plants that grow in my yard are actually edible as well, like meaning you could put them in your food, and I do. I cook with them all the time. A big joke in my house, because my husband's one of those civilians, he often asks me, how much of the yard did you put in dinner tonight? And I said, well, if you have to ask, you obviously don't know. So one thing that I do love to do is take the tiny little leaves from the Bidens and use them in my salads and whatnot.
if you consume a little bit of wild every day, it keeps your system going, is what I've been told. So I really enjoy the tiny little bitter aspect and bitter notes of the Biden's alba. And Maggie and I will sit here and graze all day. She loves it. Biden's alba is something that I use in my in one of my formulas for bacterias and for just things that really need to be cooled. Biden's alba, I've been told by one of my mentors, Dr. Bob Lindy, and one of my other mentors, Renee Crozier-Prince from Traditions Herb School, that 3 leaves will help take care of that dry hacking cough that you have. Maggie actually has a dry hacking cough from the condition that she had, the immune-mediated hemolytic anemia, because she was put on steroids, she was put on prednisone, and we used integrative medicine together, things like mallow, family, and Biden's, to really help her get over that hack. She still has a little bit of it, but I'll show you in another video later how I incorporate these herbs into her food and how I've kind of gotten her and my other dog, who is also a special needs dog, to develop that herbalist palate. And they actually have, and it works really well. Just like us, we had to develop that palate though. There's some very easy ways you can do that. But back to Biden's. Biden's alba, if you eat those 3 leaves a day, it's supposed to get rid of that nagging cough that you have. I tend to enjoy the bitterness of it. It helps me clear my throat. Sometimes when living in Florida, I get extra hacky, right? So I get extra phlegmy. And it feels like it helps to kind of take all that phlegm and dry it up just a little bit, but also moisten it so it can get out. The last plant I'm going to talk about that grows prolific in most everyone's yard is plantain. Another plant Maggie loves. Sit. What she doesn't love to do is listen. So we'll go back to plantain. This is Plantago major, and this is prolific. This came from a weed that I found in my yard, and I actually let it go all the way and just took the seeds and scattered them in a pot and said, if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's most of my gardening tips. Wherever it works, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's how we do gardening here in Ruskin, Florida at MK's Apothecary. But what I use the plantain for is it's very neutral in its action, It both tightens the tissues and pulls, and it also kind of moistens the tissues as well. Something we kind of say with the plantain and the identification of it, because there's a lot of plants that look alike, is that little string that kind of grows in celery, like if you've peeled celery before, you know what it is. It has those little strings in there that holds it together. And I imagine that those strings, from what I've been told, kind of go in and sweep everything away. So I know that's not scientific or how we should speak scientifically, but if we kind of take doctrine of signature, and I know that's a very hot topic, but I like to think of it as the plantain kind of takes everything, sweeps it all together, and then excavates it away. I can use this for things like staph to pull infection. I've used it in conjunction with Biden's alba for staph infections on people. It's worked very, very, very well, and I absolutely love it. We use it as food as well. The young tender greens are actually very tasty. It's something in my yard that not only proliferates itself, but it gives us a lot of benefits. Both me, my family, my dogs, and my friends. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed everything that I've talked about today. Everyone out there, I hope you're having a wonderful 2020 AHG online experience. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm MK Glidewell, licensed massage therapist, clinical herbalist, signing out for AHG. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thanks. We'll see you again. Good night.